Allow me to extend a warm welcome to all the viewers on the internet and around the world. It is sunrise on YouTube, morning on Facebook, noon on Twitter, midday on Threads, afternoon on Twitch, sunset on Instagram, and evening on Rumble. I am your host, the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the Phantom Menace, he who remains, and the master of the deceptive arts. We are broadcasting live directly from the sanctum of solitude and the citadel at the end of time. Good evening, everyone. It's the Ancient One here, the Bachelor Supreme, and the master of the deceptive arts. And I'm back again with another video. And today I want to talk about why people lie and the primary reasons for telling a lie. Now, there are about 9 or 10 of these reasons that we're going to look at in today's article and edification. But I wanted to dissect and analyze some of the causes of deception and really how to deal with them and identify the reasons behind them, right? So what we'll see today is that deception is not just a tool for survival or that a tool that the counterpart uses for survival, but it's also their primary weapon, right? So where they will not use force or violence or money, they will resort to manipulation and deception in order to get their ways. This is very common, right? So the other day, we looked at the art of war, right? And how to use strategy and tactics in order to put yourself in an advantageous position, right? But what we're going to try and do today is provide you some defenses against deception, right? And being deceived and manipulated. So today, I hope to demonstrate that the counterpart not only will lie, but will lie pretty much under any set of circumstances. And this is really what you'll see from this article. What you'll see is there's different situations and different set of circumstances and different reasons why the counterpart lies. And when you put all these together, you realize that this is a constant barrage of lies throughout the day, the week, months, years, and over a lifetime, right? So many benders and bachelors alike are often left perplexed by the counterpart's lies, by the extent and the volume and the duration of those lies. Many times you'll hear men say things like they feel like the whole relationship was a lie, right? Or that they were being deceived for years and years and years to the point where they cannot even determine what was true and what was a falsehood, right? So understanding the causes and the circumstances and the situations where, those lies and that deception, where it comes from, this may help you to, eliminate and illuminate some of the mystery of the counterpart and expose them, expose their tactics and the circumstances that they weave their deceptive thread into your life, right? So we hope to eventually light your way back to the bachelor life If you have bent the knee and you're currently a knee bender, there is salvation for you. You can find your way back to the bachelor life. Now, you can do this willingly under your own terms and plan it, or you can do it unwillingly and have the counterpart put you out, right, for many various reasons, right, and find yourself at a disadvantage, unprepared, homeless, without assets, without resources, having to rebuild under tremendously difficult circumstances. As a vasectomite, one of the things that I always suggest is that you keep your vasectomy a secret. You freeze your sperm, you get your vasectomy, but you have to do it in a way, quite frankly, that people don't know about it, right? So for me, my face is hidden, so I can speak frankly. But for me, to save up to 1 billion sperm, I had to go and give 8 samples, right? About 8 or 9 samples, and they only take samples once every 4 or 5 days. So for me, it was once every 4 days. I tried to be very efficient. So you have to abstain for 4 days and then go and give a sample and they'll freeze it and then abstain for another 4 days. So what we're talking about is every 4 days, almost 2 months. It took me almost 2 months to give them the samples, right? And so in that time, I was able to book the room for the hospital room, the operating room. Sorry, I lost my train of thought there for a moment. I was able to book the operating room, the anesthesiologist, the nurses, and all of that. Over the time when I was freezing my billion sperm. So then when I went in, because it's a 1 day thing, right? So you don't need to be booked in a hotel over 3 or 4 days. Actually, I came in the morning and I left in the morning. It didn't take long at all. I think I was there at 8 o'clock, and by 11:30 I was out. I was on my way back home. So it's really a same day thing. So you can do it without bringing any attention to you. You can do it on a Friday, right? You can do it on a Friday and have Saturday, Sunday, and maybe take a few days off after that. Nobody would know. Nobody would ever know, right? But I absolutely suggest that you keep your vasectomy a secret. You keep your frozen sperm your deepest, most heartfelt secret, right? So people are always telling you, don't tell people where you work. Don't tell people what you do for a living. Don't tell people, never tell anybody how much money you make. I mean, that's absurd. I don't care what they say, Don't tell them how much money you make. But other personal things about you, your favorite color, what music you like, where you stay, where you went to university, where you traveled, those details are insignificant. Those details are truly insignificant, right? So even if you create a whole fake persona about yourself, if you have like what they call a regular 9 to 5 job, which I believe every person on earth should have, right? I think even if you have your own business, you should be working a minimum of 9 to 5 in that business plus overtime, right? Those hours should be standard working hours for everyone. Those are productive hours. There's a reason they make you work those specific hours, because those are your most productive hours of the day. So even if you own your own business, right? Try to keep that 9 to 5 schedule, right? Try to work those hours even at your own business. So there are days, like as an entrepreneur, where business isn't really picking up or things aren't really happening, right? And you might feel like you can take some time off, or you can travel, or you can do whatever. I suggest even when business is slow, you still maintain those core working hours. And then an hour or two over that to add to your productivity. But you should be doing your regular 9 to 5. And you can share those details with people, right? So, give them, the best information that you can. So, I mean, if you're a policeman, just say something like you're a detective, right? Most people don't know the difference. If you work in a company, just tell them you're the COO. Who's gonna know? Who's gonna know? Who's gonna really know? Nobody's really gonna care as long as socially you are acceptable, right? So you don't have to lie, but you can give them the best description, the best adjective of your type and style of work. But as for your vasectomy, you got to keep that an absolute secret. You got to keep that an absolute secret. Better to just not talk about it, right? Or if you do, let's talk about it here on this platform, right? But you should not be telling people about your vasectomy. They will stigmatize you, and they will attack you, right? And if you expose either one, your frozen sperm or your vasectomy, the counterpart will find a way to attack that and use that against you, right? You cannot tell how the counterpart will react or what they will say. So they might realize that they don't have the power of the biological imperative over you. So because you have a vasectomy, you're not really trying to impress them in a way that should you get them pregnant or inseminated, that you still need for them to like you in the long term. And you can't tell what that loss of power or influence will manifest itself into from the perspective of the counterpart, right? They could be accepting and normal and just realize, okay, this is who you are. Or they could be spiteful, right? They could be vengeful. They could take that as a personal insult. Like when you tell people that you don't want to get married, especially counterparts, they see that your resources in that specific way will not be available to them, right? They see that as a loss of potential, right? So they could insinuate anything about you, right? But you have to remember that about 70% of American women between 13 and about 25 or 28 are on all kinds of contraception and birth control. All kinds of contraception and birth control. But upon discovering that you have a vasectomy, you know, there's no telling what that will induce in them. So keep it a secret. There's also no telling how your family and friends will respond. People might see you as a threat, and I mean like this is one reason that people don't like bachelors, right? Because they are terrified that you will seduce their women, right? Not seduce their women like directly, but like indirectly. Because you're a bachelor, you can go to the gym every day, you'll be fit, you'll be healthy, even if you don't go every day. Because you're not eating all those home cooked meals, all those takeaways, because now your wife doesn't want to cook. She wants to buy takeaways. She's going to buy takeaways for the whole family. And then she has leftovers for tomorrow. So you're not eating all of that junk food, all that processed. So you'll be in relatively good shape and good health, good mentality. You'll have money because you're not paying for all these kids, and this mortgage and these cars, these 3 cars. So you'll have money. And that will be attractive. Your freedom, your independence, your ability um, to be flexible, to be spontaneous. That's the word. The counterpart loves spontaneity. They love your ability to stay up longer or to take an unplanned trip or to just get in your car and go somewhere on the whim, right? Which is what bachelors can do. And the counterpart loves that. But a husband who's in the dark dimension, he's got a plan long term, right? He's got a budget 15, 20 years into the future when you can spend your budget willy-nilly right now. So the counterpart finds that very attractive. They find your physical presence attractive. They find your freedom attractive. They find your financial status attractive. They find your capacity for spontaneous action attractive. They find that you are more relaxed, less tense, more flexible, less rigid, and they find that attractive. And knowing that the counterpart finds this attractive and you embody all these traits. Now remember, the knee bender believes that having a woman is winning. And when a woman loves them, they are winning. When your woman inevitably finds those features, those traits, even if they don't find you physically, personally attractive, even if you're not handsome, you're like me, right? You're the ancient one, so you've aged and you're just not handsome. That's why you're hiding your face on the internet. The fact that I have these freedoms, this confidence, this independent train of thought, and I can speak my mind as I do with my beliefs thoroughly entrenched in me. That sense of confidence and sense of self-belief translates into something that the knee bender cannot be, especially if you have children, young children, daughters. You need to have a certain level of sensitivity, which quite frankly indicates, even if it's not true, it does indicate a little bit of feminine energy. And that's why women don't find that really attractive, right? They are the feminine ones, so they are repulsed by feminine energy. Just the same way that men are masculine, but we are repulsed by masculine energy. We find masculine energy in another man as a challenge to our masculinity, so we're repulsed by it. But feminine energy we are attracted to, right? Because we don't have that, right? And it works the other way. So when they see the hyper masculinity that comes out naturally from embracing the bachelor life, that can translate in the mind of the counterpart as something to be attracted to. And the knee bender knows this because they were a bachelor once. So upon knowing this, they will feel threatened by you. They will want to attack you. They will want to attack your bachelorhood, right? They will want, especially if they've gained weight. Knee benders are always putting on weight. Even all that housework doesn't translate to work in the gym. It really doesn't. So you're going to put on some weight, and that's going to affect your attractiveness, right? So you really need to protect yourself from the knee benders, right? So before we jump into the article, we're going to look at some of the words from the Grand Master of the deceptive arts who we have discussed earlier in this week. But we're going to look at some of his words. Some we've looked at before, but others will be from different passages of his manuscripts. And provide a meaningful, or try to provide a meaningful strategy on dealing with these deceptions and these deceptive situations, right? As mentioned before, the aim today is to demonstrate that the counterpart's deception has no limits, has no boundaries, has no bottoms, and really applies to so many different situations, and they can use that deception in so many different situations, in so many volumes, so many different doses and strengths. So it's very difficult to prepare for it, right? So you don't know when somebody's going to lie to you and necessarily what the consequences of those lies are. But having the words of the Grand Master of the deceptive arts, we can at least anticipate in a realistic way that we may or may not be deceived and how we can deal with that. All right. Today's article will demonstrate both the ordinary and the extreme situations, right? And more so, that the counterpart is inclined to use deception in either the ordinary and the extreme situation, right? This is just their go-to. This is just their ordinary tool, right? There are circumstances depicted that might seem good in their intent in this article, right? But even in the so-called good intentions, right? It will expose the devious, insidious execution deployed by the counterparts, the lies, the manipulation, right? And just show just how common, how standard, how indicative these lies are of the counterpart's normal everyday behavior, right? But first, we're going to start with the words from the Grand Master of the Deceptive Arts. I beg your pardon, I'm speaking too quickly. And see how is his enduring wisdom, right? And how he recommends that you approach and tackle the issue of deception in your own life. We learn from the Grand Master that the art of war teaches us to rely not on the likelihood of the enemy's not coming, but on our own readiness to receive him, not on the chance of his not attacking, but rather on the fact that we have made our position unassailable. That should say unassailable. And what do these words mean, right? It means that you need to understand that this is the nature of the counterpart and that they are going to be deceptive anyway, right? So instead of spending your time praying and hoping that the counterpart will somehow become honest and change their insidious nature, you need to just accept them for who they are, right? Don't rely on the fact or on the idea or the hope or the wish or the dream or the prayer that they're not going to be deceptive and dishonest and manipulative. Rather, get a vasectomy and put yourself in a position that makes you undefeatable, that makes you invincible from the terrible consequences of the counterpart's deception. Because you know they're going to be deceptive. You know what they're going to do, right? You know they have the ultimate plan, which is to get somebody to fund their existence, right? And they will do this by marriage, the dark dimension, and children, right? The laws are written such that these two things will bind you to a counterpart for infinity, right? The Grand Master says, you can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places which are undefended. You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. So what does that mean? This means, in truth, anything that you attack, anything that you oppose, that is heavily defended. So if the counterpart is going to be defensive, using lies and manipulation to avoid accountability for anything, they can deny, they can lie. You can't be sure of convincing them otherwise, no matter how logical you are. You're not going to be able to fully be successful. The only way you're going to be fully successful with a counterpart is if they are not resistant at all to what you're saying, what you are suggesting, right? It says here you can be sure of succeeding in your attacks if you only attack places that are undefended. Right? You can ensure the safety of your defense if you only hold positions that cannot be attacked. So if you get yourself that vasectomy, in effect, the only attack that they can make to it would be a social one, right? Stigmatization, insults, that kind of thing. But you'll be prevented from financial attacks. You'll be prevented from legal attacks. You'll be prevented from being homeless and being threatened with prison if you don't pay this individual a certain amount of money, right? And you'll be free. You'll be free indeed. Hence, he is skilled in attack whose opponent does not know what to defend, and he is skilled in defense whose opponent does not know what to attack. Keep your vasectomy a secret. That's what this says, right? If they don't know that you have 1 billion sperm, if they don't know that you have a vasectomy, if they don't know how much money is in your bank account, if they don't know what your assets are, right? Then they cannot attack that, right? So what you need to do is, instead of creating and manufacturing a falsehood, you need to have a set of things that you don't discuss. Vasectomy is one of them. Just don't even bring it up. Find a responsible answer to discuss finances, right? Find a responsible way to discuss your investments, right? But don't tell people how much you have. Don't tell people what you own, right? But you can let them know that you're doing okay, that you're doing okay. Business is good. You know, this is not a lie. You don't need to give up details. You don't need to give up details, right? They cannot attack what they don't know, right? And they cannot defend what they don't know you are going to attack. So don't be telling people your plans, right? If they know that you're going to attack something, if they know you're going to make a move towards something, then they will mount a defense for that, right? The Grandmaster says the highest pitch you can attain is to conceal your disposition. The highest level of strategy that you can achieve is to not let anybody know what your strategy is. To keep all of that secret and just let them see the results, the outcome, the consequences. Never the steps, never the process, and never the plan. Just the residual, what you have done in your past, right? He goes on to say, and this now is an indication of how you should behave, how you should maintain your calmness and the mentality that you need to have in your demeanor. He says, simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulated weakness postulates strength. Concealing courage under a show of humility presupposes a fund of latent energy. What does the Grandmaster teach us here? He teaches us that in an environment where people are celebrating, having a good time, partying, dancing, singing, inebriated, and you are sober-minded, to participate in that, to will yourself and allow yourself to a limited and controlled extent to participate in human, social, ritual, and interaction is in fact an indication of self-discipline. Where you would prepare, remember we're talking about deception. When you are prepared internally to just get up and walk away from this loud, messy, noisy environment, you allow yourself to stay in order to be sociable and have that influence, right? And you are allowing yourself to not let the situation get out of hand or beyond your control, and you are always prepared for a swift exit. Simulated disorder indicates, shows. Simulated means performance, acting like, right? You are part of them. You are one among them, but you are never one of them. You're a bachelor. Simulated fear postulates courage. This is what you do when you're dealing with superior forces, people that are richer, more powerful than you. While you may not fear them inherently, you can simulate the fear, you can simulate the respect that they will appreciate for their station. And they may in turn return that respect, right? So you show that fear, and in return, that is an indication of the courage that you have, right? You can humble yourself actively in order to get another person to feel better, right? Simulated weakness postulates strength, right? To allow others to feel like they're running faster or they are winning, right? And I always say the first rule of the game is to make the other person feel like they're winning. This indicates that you are in control. It's like a chess game when you deliberately sacrifice your queen to lull your opponent into a false sense of security while they open up inadvertently the move that allows you to get the checkmate in 3 moves rather than 5. Right? Simulated disorder postulates perfect discipline. Simulated fear postulates courage. Simulated weakness is a true and the truest indication of strength. Let them think they're winning. Let the knee bender feel like he's winning by being with your girl. He doesn't know you're a vasectomite. He gets that woman pregnant, it's a 20-year life sentence for both of them. You get less time for murder. This is the consequence of betraying a vasectomite. You get more time, more legal bindings, more lawyer fees than you would if you had just killed someone. This is true. He concludes today's edification by saying, concealing courage under a show of humility presupposes a fund of latent energy. Hiding your strength with humility, right? Hiding your strength with poise indicates a abundance of energy that is just waiting to be used. So now you are reserving your energy instead of wasting it, expending it on a target, quite frankly, that you don't know you'll be able to defeat. So you need to have self-control. But real self-control comes from being prepared, from putting yourself in a position where you cannot be defeated. Get a vasectomy before you return into these relationships. Now, notice how I said, I didn't say just hit monk mode for the rest of your life, because I know that's not possible. I said get a vasectomy and then go into a relationship and engage with a real advantage. Don't walk in there with your money, because they'll take all your money. Don't walk in there healthy and fit, because they'll just feed you junk food and keep you up all night so you can't go to the gym. This is easy to defeat. Don't come in there with your education, because they'll just discredit all the information that you've learned by showing you a study that's counter to what you believe. Right? Don't go in there with your mental health, because they'll just hit you with all their problems and you'll be depressed in a week. All that healthiness will be undone by one news report. You'll just watch the news and see how depressed the world is. There goes your happiness. But get a vasectomy that cannot be undone, and you can always remain secure in your position. Before we read today's article, which is entitled Reasons for Lying, Why People Lie, by Dr. Paul Ekman. I'm again sorry for mispronouncing that name. I want to apologize for some of the spelling and grammatical errors in the previous slide, the previous screen. Words like it said unsuitable when it should be insurmountable, and there were other grammatical errors in here, like humidity. It's instead of show of humility, it said show of humidity. In truth, the spell check, the automatic spell check system on my devices, it does it automatically. They just change my words around, and change my meaning. But I still hope the information came through with the earnestness that I tried to put it together. But yeah, this technology, all it does is just replace old problems with new problems. But anyway, back to the lies in your life and the things that you're dealing with on a daily basis. Reasons for Lying, Why People Lie, by Dr. Paul Ekman. This is from the Ekman Group website. I can't remember the exact website, but it says, people resort to lying for many different reasons that it'd be impossible to list them all. However, of the most common motives for telling lies, avoiding punishment is the primary motivator for both children and adults. In other words, accountability, right? Avoiding accountability for your actions and the consequences for those actions. Other typical reasons include protecting ourselves or others from harm, maintaining privacy, and avoiding embarrassment, to name a few. In other words, selfishness, right? In fact, this is all about self-preservation. We're going to skip that tab and go straight to reason number one, which is avoiding punishment. These are not numbered, so I won't be using any sort of numerical sequence as I read them. I'm just going to read them as they appear. Number one is avoiding punishment. I thought I was only going 55 miles an hour, officer, claims the driver speeding at 70 miles per hour. My wristwatch stopped, so I had no idea that I got home 2 hours after my curfew, says a teenager. Avoiding punishment is the most frequent reason people tell serious lies, regardless of their age, whether it be to avoid the speeding ticket or being grounded. In serious lies, there is a threat of significant damage if the lie is discovered. Loss of freedom, money, job, relationship, reputation, or even life itself, right? This makes absolute sense to me. In fact, I know that the counterpart is absolutely afraid of taking accountability for any single thing. The article continue. It is only in such serious lies in which the liar would be punished if detected. That lies are detectable from demeanor. In other words, facial expression, body movement, gaze, voice, or words. So the more serious the consequence, the bigger the lie. This is effectively what they're saying here. So, and the easier the lie is to tell. So for instance, if you're speeding and you lie, it's probably because you've done something wrong or you're intoxicated or that type of thing, right? And in that case, you will know that the consequences will be severe, so you'll start lying. But in the process of that lying, your lie will be detectable in your demeanor, right? The threat imposes an emotional load, generating involuntary changes that can betray the lie. The lies of everyday life, where it doesn't matter if they are detected, no punishment or rewards, that lies are easily told flawlessly, right? So it's the so-called white lies, the simple lies, the no, you don't look fat in those jeans. Those lies are easier to tell and easier to conceal, right? So keep that in mind. Keep that in mind. You may be being lied to all the time without actually even knowing. But as we read this article, I want you to notice that these are just ordinary, everyday circumstances, right? So people make mistakes all the time, and they will lie to cover up those mistakes. Next is concealing reward or benefit, right? Or sometimes to get a reward or benefit, or concealing having received a reward or a benefit. It reads, in serious lies, the falsehood is usually told to conceal the reward or benefit the liar obtained by breaking a rule or explicit expectation, right? So they will do something wrong and then lie to cover up the benefit that they got by doing something wrong. The curfew violator was unable to stay longer at a party. The speeding driver is rushing because he pushed the snooze button when the alarm went off. That's an actually plausible situation. You woke up late, so you're rushing to work. The husband who claims the ringer on the phone in his office must have been turned off while he was working late in a hotel room with his girlfriend will pay no price if his lie succeeds, right? Or the wife, right? I mean, they very conveniently say the husband, but it could just as easily be the wife. He's not there by himself, right? In each of these examples, the rule breaker decides before breaking a rule that he or she will, if questioned, lie to cover the cheating. So they know this beforehand, right? So if a person cheats and you catch them cheating, they knew they were going to cheat beforehand. And they knew that they were going to lie. So this lie, like many lies, is pretty much premeditated. These are very ordinary occurrences. I mean, these things happen all the time. Sometimes the reward could have been achieved, a high mark on an exam without cheating, but not as easily. It would have taken more effort, right? So let me read that again. Sometimes the reward could have been achieved, like a high mark, without cheating, but not as easily. It would have taken more effort, hours of studies, for example. So, for example, instead of just working hard to achieve their goals, they will cheat to get the grade, to get the outcome, and then lie about the cheating. This is just a web of lies. To me, just like what the counterpart does on a daily basis. Next, protecting somebody from harm. Now, you can absolutely guarantee if the counterpart has been in an affair, they will not only want to protect themselves, they'll also want to protect the person that they're in the affair with. Protecting someone else from harm is the next most important reason why people tell serious lies. You don't want your friend, your fellow worker, your sibling, your spouse, anyone who you care about to get punished, even if you don't agree with what the person you are protecting did that put him or her in danger. So they'll protect someone even if that person is wrong, right? So now they are an accomplice, right? This is what they're telling you. So if a counterpart has a history of substance abuse and they don't really want to discuss it, they may not just have been the customer, they may have also been a provider. Many substance abusers are also the sellers of the substances that they abuse. When policemen refuse to testify against a fellow officer they know has broken the law, we respect their motives, but many people believe that they should be truthful, right? True. Yet the terms we use, rat, fink, snitch, I never knew about the word fink, but I'll use it in the future, are derogatory. Anonymous call Anonymous call-in lines exist so those who volunteer information can avoid any loss of reputation or danger by informing. Now consider that. To tell the truth, the lies are so prevalent, right? That to tell the truth, they have an anonymous line where you can tell the truth and then walk away from it. This is how prevalent lies are in humanity. You can't trust anyone. You just can't trust anyone. Do we have different standards for people who take the initiative to inform as compared to those who inform when directly asked to reveal the information? I will reconsider this issue in a later newsletter when I write about children's lives and why we don't want them to tattle. Okay, so he'll deal with that in another article. Maybe we'll read that one too. But effectively, right, he asks, do we have different standards for people who take the initiative to inform as compared to those who inform when directly asked to reveal information? So, in other words, if you decide to go and tell the truth all by yourself, right, is that viewed differently than if the police ask you a question and you don't lie? So if you offer up the information, you're a fink, right? But if they ask you and you tell them that information, that's what, self-preservation? I don't know. It just indicates that the standard and the consequences of truth in normal society are very high, and the consequences can be devastating, right? People don't want you to talk about them, telling their truths to other people. Self-protection. To protect yourself from being harmed even when you have not broken any rule is still another motive. The child home alone who tells the stranger knocking on the door, "My father is taking a nap, come back later," has committed no misdeed that he or she is concealing. It is a self-protective lie. This is really, I think, the number one reason for the counterparts' most lies. So they'll be up to no good. They are up to no good. And they know that they will be in trouble no matter what they do. So they're not just protecting themselves from you finding out, they're protecting themselves from what you might do if you do find out. So you might tell the police about their previous crimes. There might be a warrant open for them, and you might inform them that they are here in your residence, and they may be then arrested or incarcerated or tried. Some lies are told to win admiration from others. Boasting about something untrue is an obvious instance, right? A lot of benders will claim to have bedded an extraordinary amount of women, which is on the one hand just physically not possible, but on the other hand troubling, which is an indication of like bad judgment and poor health, because you're probably going to catch an infection or a disease of some kind, right? But they will lie to make themselves look good, right? I've heard people claim to have written books but decided not to publish the book out of their own humility, right? So they didn't want to be famous or something, when in fact they haven't even written one chapter. Boasting about something untrue is an obvious instance. Let's continue. It is common in children, some adolescents, and even adults. Many adults do this. If discovered, it harms the reputation of the boaster, but not much more than that. Claiming falsely to have earned money for previous investors moves into the criminal realm. This is so prevalent in online content creators, where they will claim to have a certain lifestyle. And while they may have that lifestyle, what you'll discover is that lifestyle is very much rented or had at a very tremendous personal cost. So you really cannot take what you see at face value. In truth, I don't think that people make a lot of money by making the types of online content that I do. But if you have a message that you believe in and you want that message to survive, the best way to do it is to go online, which is what I'm pretty much doing. I want the message of the vasectomy to be out there. I want people to know, even if I don't get paid for it, because I have a regular job. So I'm not going to tell you that, oh, I'm making so much money online to make myself look good as a content creator, when in truth, all my money comes from my real job. And I'm doing this for passion. I'm doing this because I believe in the vasectomites. I believe in the bachelor life. I am a bachelor for life. And I believe that there are other people who believe the same thing. There are other people who have not bought into the so many false prophets that you see, men claiming astronomical things, but they'll have children. Right. So they'll say things like, "Oh, I'm good with women. I'm dating all kinds of women, and I'm living all kinds of lifestyles," and that lifestyle is had at tremendous credit card debt. And if those women exist, they have children with those women, and if their intimacy extends before that, they definitely caught an STD. This happens all the time, where people who are boastful and don't really have a message, they're just in it for themselves, right? This is one thing that you can also gain a lot of online, is some personal fame, right? And some people are able to translate that fame into some type of money, sponsorships, and so forth. But in truth, this is what it's about. It's all about attention, right? And people will say anything for attention. But if you don't have a message, a real message, you can't be consistent. That's why their messages are up and down. On the one hand, they got money to pay all the bills, but on the other hand, they don't want to do nothing for their counterparts. And it's like, well, why do you get all the money? You're already paying the bills. Might as well take her on a date. You know what I mean? You're already in debt. Might as well keep using that credit card. And a lot of them are stepfathers. They're not bachelors for real. They're not vasectomites. And if they did get their vasectomy, they got it after 2, 3 kids and a divorce and tons of alimony payments, right? So, at some point, you have to choose what hill to die on. And where you stand, that's where you're going to be judged. That's where you're going to be judged. And a lot of people are very boastful and ungrateful, right? And their lies often come back to haunt them by a lack of consistency in their production, right? The money's not coming in, so you're not making those videos every day. You're making them once every 2 weeks, once every 3 days, just so you can get a little bit of attention, because you're not a true believer in what you're saying. You stand for the manosphere, but you're married with 3 kids. What are you talking about? Maintaining privacy. To maintain privacy without asserting that right is another reason why people may lie. So Instead of demanding their privacy outright, saying, "This is my space, I don't want you coming in here. This is my phone, I don't want you looking into it," what they'll do is they will lie and create a manipulative scenario to keep you away, looking in another direction so that they can do what they want here. Which is why, really, it's so difficult to predict lies, to anticipate them, and to protect yourself from them, unless, of course, you follow the ways of the Grand Master of the deceptive arts and you put yourself beyond the possibility of being affected by those lies. And you don't stand there in ignorance, hoping that the deceiver will not deceive, right? But rather, you prepare yourself so that when they do deceive, you're ready, right? A daughter answering her mother's question, "Who are you talking to on the phone just now?" There's that phone again. By naming a girlfriend, not the boy who is asking her out on a date, is an example. Now, substitute the mother for yourself, right? Your counterpart is answering your question when you ask them, "Who are you talking to on the phone just now?" And by naming one of her friends, one of her female friends, and not the boy who's taking her out on the date, for an example, is a way that they will lie to maintain their privacy and deception. I mean, this happens all the time. So the counterpart, like I told you, the counterpart doesn't even respect their own father. And here's an example where they don't respect their mother, don't respect nothing. If they can do that to their parent, you think they'll tell you the truth? Every time she tells you that it's one of her girlfriends, every time she tells you that it's her sister and it's her mother, she's lying. Every single time. It is only when there is a strong, trusting relationship that a child would feel free, would feel brave enough to say, "That's private," announcing the right to have a secret. Another topic I will return to in my newsletter about trust. Maybe we'll read that newsletter too, right? But Dr. Ekman says here very clearly that unless they feel secure enough to say that, this is private, I don't want you to know about it, right? Which in fact we will do generally, I believe, with strangers. I feel very confident telling a stranger, "This is none of your business," right? You've gone too far now. But you can't really maintain that if you're in a relationship. Somebody asks you who you're talking to and you say it's none of your business, that's a problem, right? That's a problem. Who's that message from? It's none of your business, that's a problem. The thrill of it all is the next point. Some people lie for the sheer thrill of getting away with it, testing their unsuspected power, right? They're playing a game. They want to see if you can tell if they are lying. And then if you can't, they escalate the lie, and they escalate the lie, and they escalate the lie. This is what the counterpart does. And they do it for fun. They don't just do it, to protect themselves, but they also do it to test your intelligence, to test if you can tell if they are lying, and to see how far your trust for them will go. And in truth, logically speaking, we all know that there's no way. I mean, if I said I'm wearing a blue jacket, or if I say I'm wearing a green jacket or a red jacket, how will you know which jacket I'm wearing? How would you be able to know? You can't even see my face. And I put a video out every day, right? So if I intend on deceiving you with my words and with my actions and with my demeanor, you would have no way of knowing. This is why they've invested so much money in the art of detecting lies, and nothing concrete has come up. They tell you to look in the eyes. I'm telling you, if you want to know the truth of somebody, look at their mouth. Analyze what they've eaten, what they've drank, what they've smoked, what they smell like. You'll be able to tell in an instant what they had for breakfast, right? Sometimes even the night before. Many children will at some point lie to their parents simply to see if they can do it. This is true. This is the counterpart. Typically, some people do this all the time enjoying the power they obtain in controlling the information available to the target. In fact, it doesn't even matter if the information is plausible or true. They'll just say whatever they want just to see how you respond and if you respond. And if you call them out, they'll do gaslighting, which is what we discussed yesterday, right? As red flags, they'll gaslight you. Reverse psychology, right? Make you believe that you're the crazy person, right? This is the extent of the deception of the counterpart. And in fact, just the extent of deception on the norm. It happens all the time. Avoiding embarrassment. Avoiding embarrassment is still another motive for some serious and many trivial lies. The counterpart does this all the time. Because they are an incompetent failure with no power for accomplishment, whenever they try to do something and it fails, they'll just blame somebody else, right, to hide their own incompetence. This happens all the time at work. This is why you've lost so many good colleagues at work, and in so many of your jobs, because you had an incompetent counterpart who was then called out for their incompetence, and they then said that they were assaulted somehow, right? Because they don't want people seeing that they don't really know what they're doing. This happens in academia quite often, where people are employed not because of their qualification, but rather because of their skill. So you might have a transferable qualification, and a transferable skill into one from one department to another department. But when you get there and you encounter people who are qualified and skilled and experienced, and you find yourself lacking, this can be embarrassing for many people who believe that their academic qualifications are superior when you've been exposed, right, to not having the right skills. So they will then say that, oh no, I've been assaulted in this way. And the person who exposed the incompetence will get fired, right? And they'll be denying it. I never did that all the time, right? The child who claims that the wet seat resulted from spilling a glass of water, not from wetting her pants, is an example. If the child did not fear punishment for her failure, just embarrassment, right? So even if they know that there's no real punishment for it, they will still cover up a very embarrassing or very bad act, a miscalculation. One thing you have to know is the counterpart cannot read and the counterpart cannot count. That's why the counterpart is so resistant against prenuptial agreement, because it involves a tremendous amount of reading and they can't read. And that's why they're always getting their finances and the economics wrong, especially when it comes to counting percentages for taxes. They always get that wrong because they don't know how to count either. And I assure you of that. This is why they're so vindictive, because they just cannot logically comprehend certain things. Avoiding embarrassment is relevant to many less serious lies that come under the rubric of lies of everyday life. Every often, people lie to get out of an awkward social situation. So, cold approach. You go up to somebody and they say, "I have a boyfriend." Awkward social situation, right? They may not know how to do it. Can't get a babysitter. Offered to avoid another dull evening and food. I'm going to read that again. They may not know how to do it. Can't get a babysitter. Offered to avoid another dull evening and food. I'm just going to go move on, right? Oh, I see. So this is when they're blowing you off, telling you they can't get a babysitter, right? Sorry, I'm on my way out the door. Yeah, when they're late, an excuse given by people who do not feel brave enough to be truthful, even to a totally unknown telephone solicitor. Okay, so this is a set of circumstances when you call someone and you want to offer them a credit card, and instead of refusing, they just tell you that, oh, I can't take your call right now, I'm leaving, right? But all that does is just induce the person to call you again later. But embarrassment. That last paragraph didn't really come together for me, but okay, let's move on. Our final reason is being polite. So this is when I believe when somebody thinks they're being nice to you, right? But they're just lying to your face, telling you you're cute or you're handsome. Guys, you're not cute. You're all handsome, especially if you're over 30. Just let it go, right? Then there are the deceptions that are required by politeness. Thanks so much for the lovely party, or that color really looks good on you. I don't consider these to be lies any more than bluffing in poker is a lie. Acting is acting in a play is lying, or asking price not being the selling price, right? So the asking price is not the selling price. That's so much or thanks so much for the lovely party. So when you're going out, and you really didn't want to go out, right? Or when somebody gives you like a surprise party, that color really looks good on you, right? Cheap compliments, right? I would suggest if you want to compliment somebody, give them an honest compliment. Find something about them that you like and then compliment that. So if you like their shoes, compliment their shoes, right? If they like their glasses, compliment their glasses. But don't lie in order to compliment somebody. They can always tell that it's not, at least a person who is perceptive and looking out to see if somebody's lying to them, like I am, right? I'm always on the lookout for deception. They'll be able to pick up something is wrong, right? They'll be able to say, well, there's a disturbance in the force, right? You are not being pure in your intentions, and they'll be able to identify that. So, especially if somebody's looking for indications that they're being deceived, the counterpart is consistently looking for this. They are always paranoid. So, if you're going to compliment them, assess them, find something that is genuinely good, and then go ahead and compliment that. In all these instances, the target does not expect to be told the truth. There is notification, but the imposter is a liar, as in the con man, because they are taking advantage of our expectations that we will be told the truth. So, what they're saying is you're asking with the intention of being told the truth. Hey, what do you think about my videos, right? And somebody will say, oh man, they're really good, and never watch any of them, right? And never follow through on any of them, or not be interested in any of the in the content at all. So they'll be like, oh yeah, bachelor for life, and they don't care, right? Knee benders don't care about being bachelors at all. So keep that in mind. People will lie just because they think that they are telling you the truth. More about this will be in my newsletter, so we'll have a look at that newsletter. I'm not finishing that sentence. Do we really want to know if someone is lying? This is a very good question. In most cases, there's no quick or easy way to detect deception, and even if there were, we might not like what we discover. This is very true. So there's no really easy way of finding out if somebody's lying to you or deceiving you. But then do you really want to know? Do you really want to know what this person has been doing behind your back, or what it is that they're hiding? And if you find out, what really can you do about it if it's already happened? Right? You find out that your wife is having an affair or has had an affair. You can't undo their experiences together. If they bonded and connected emotionally, you can't do that. If she's pregnant with another man's wife, with another man's child, if your wife is pregnant with another man's child, You cannot undo that. So even if you find out about the deception, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? Should have got your vasectomy before. You should have got that vasectomy before. This is why I keep making these videos with no guarantee of where they're going to go. But I know someone's going to hear them, and they're going to hear the words vasectomy, and a life will be saved. So, while people often claim to want to know the truth, there are many instances in which it is more comforting to believe the lies, or people are so comforted by lies. In these circumstances, we tend to ignore deception clues and excuse otherwise suspicious behavior to avoid the potentially negative consequences of uncovering the lies we're told. This is true. This is true. And this is where we will conclude today's video. So what I believe that I proved what I set out and what I said in my initial hypothesis is that not only are these lies prevalent and very commonplace every day, every hour, right? They happen in almost every circumstance of life. In every situation in life, there is an element of deception. And in truth, you won't know what that deception or what the consequences of that deception will be for you. So you need to get your vasectomy before you go into the Romance wars, right? And you know, deception is an act of war. If people are deceiving you, they're not looking out for you. They're not there for your better good, right? They're not there. It's not an indication of politeness or kindness or caring. It's a lie. And you need to protect yourself from people's lies, right? You need to protect yourself from people's lies. Follow the wisdom of the Grand Master. Follow these videos, right? Listen very carefully. Listen to them again, right? You don't have to listen to the whole thing, but listen to this article again. Look at these circumstances and compare them with your own reality, your own life. Haven't you told these lies? Of course you have. And you've had these lies told to you, right? But what will be the consequence of the next lie? Where's the next lie going to put you, right? If you don't put yourself in the bachelor life and get a vasectomy, then you will be at the mercy of the counterpart's lies. And they could tell you things like, oh, we're moving across country, I got a job. And you get there and they have nothing. And they have nothing. They just wanted to see the extent to which you would go to follow their lies. Right? And you should not. You should never follow a counterpart anyway. These people don't know what they're doing. These people don't know what they're doing. You know, there are even examples here of them misleading and betraying their own parents. You think they won't mislead and betray you? Then you, my friend, have already been misled. This is the absolute truth. So go get your vasectomy, protect yourself, try to identify deception. In fact, don't even bother trying to identify it. Just assume there's an element of deception in everyone. And you'd probably be right. This is the Ancient One, the Bachelor Supreme, the master of the deceptive arts. Thank you again for your attention. I appreciate it, and I always will. Have a nice day.